svima, domaćica nenadano i prevremeno otvara svoj novi odeljak, intervju, koji će, za razliku od meetupova, biti namenjen nešto ozbiljnim razgovorima sa stručnim licima. Imali smo u planu da leto bude nešto opuštenije i posvećeno slobodnim razgovorima koji se zasnivaju na kanabis iskustvima Srba. Međutim, prilika da razgovaramo sa renomiranim kanabis stručnjakom nije se smela propustiti. Nalazimo se u Beogradu na jednoj predivnoj lokaciji, a povod je Međunarodni seminar o kanabisu, druga po redu međunarodna panel tribina o lečenju kanabisom. Događaj je, kao i prošle godine, organizovalo humanitarno udruženje Socijalni kanabis klub Beograd IRKA, a ovoga puta uz veliku pomoć Zelene stranke. Simbolično, predsjednik Zelene stranke Goran Čabradi danas predaće i predlog izmena Zakona o psihoaktivnim kontrolisanim supstancama u Skupštini Srbije tokom redovnog zasedanja. Zakon omogućava uzgoj, preradu i korišćenje kanabisa u medicini i za istraživanja. A evo ko je sa nama, Robert Melamede, doktor molekularne biologije i biohemije sa Gradskog univerziteta u New Yorku, vanredni profesor, šef odseka za biologiju pri Univerzitetu Kolorada u penziji, predsjednik i direktor biotehnološke kompanije Kanabis Inc., direktor programa fondacije Phoenix Tears, izvršni direktor kompanije Melamedea Limited i naučni savjetnik s Kanabisa, vodeće evropske kanabis manifestacije. Dr. Bob, welcome and thank you for agreeing to speak with us.
Thank you for having me.
At first, would you like to tell us shortly how and when did you start researching cannabis thoroughly? I have just numbered all of your callings, although the general public would probably like to hear more about your career development.
Well, it started with my cannabis use as a teenager. I was 16, I started college, and that summer I tried cannabis for the first time and found that I enjoyed it, and subsequently went from just having fun with it, but realizing that the changes that it creates in your brain can actually be used in a functional way, and you feel your body much more, so it made me more aware of who I am, and that made me aware of my need to learn more and to be a better student than I was, so I eventually became a very good student, and I attribute it to cannabis use.
Okay, of all the reasons for using cannabis, spiritual and medical usage are ones of the most prominent. Could you tell us what were the reasons for you to try cannabis at first place? What were the reasons to keep using it, and why are you using it today?
Well, you know, in the first place it was just exploration and fun.
Okay.
And then because I saw how it impacted my consciousness, and because I was a student, the learning issues became very interesting for me. So I explored it and I used it. But then as I got older, the more you use it, the more spiritual it becomes, because you start to feel not only your body, but you see that mind-body connection, which is amplified by cannabis, because we all make what's called endocannabinoids. We make marijuana-like compounds, and they regulate everything in our body from conception till death. So once you start to understand what's really happening, you naturally will gravitate towards it more. The issue is, though, that our education system and our government, our society, is totally out of whack with the reality. As you know, the UN calls it the dangerous drug, and et cetera, et cetera. That is so far from the truth. What has happened is our medical establishment and our pharmaceutical establishment have created a box that they call reality. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a lot of connection to reality.
Okay, but it's generally believed that cannabis has bad influence on brain functioning. According to World Health Organization, specifically, cannabis has harmful influence on cognitive functions of the brain, integration of complex information, and mechanisms of attention and memory. On the other hand, you just told that you start using cannabis when you have 16 years, yeah? And it obviously did not prevent you to get all these callings, right?
No, all the science that I've created that's novel to me occurred when I used cannabis.
Could cannabis usage really lead to damage of the anatomy and physiology?
No, it's the opposite. It's the exact opposite. They got it totally backwards, because your endocannabinoid system protects you. The reason we age and get illnesses has to do with how energy flows through us and creates and maintains us. And if we do the wrong things, then we age more rapidly and get sicker. And what your endocannabinoid system does is it protects you from, it's an anti-aging drug. I'm going to be 70 years old. I know it's an anti-aging drug from my own personal experience. Now, it hasn't been FDA approved, and But I don't care. I know how I'm feeling, and that's what happens to people all around the world. You're sick, you can't walk, or countless illnesses, because our endocannabinoid system regulates balance of everything.
Yeah.
When you have illness, that's imbalance, and when you start to use it, you have the opportunity to start moving back into the direction of health. It doesn't mean it's going to cure everything. It doesn't mean that, but it really is miraculous. When you see the things that are done with it, it's so outside the realm in many cases of normal medicine that they would look at it and call it miraculous. And yet if you're in the field and see what's going on with medical marijuana, you know that those things are normal.
Recently, a scandalous incident happened here in Serbia. A group of academics looked for a revision of Darwin's theory of evolution and demanded that, besides scientific explanation of the origin of life, people should be introduced with creationist explanation as well. It's interesting that you're declared as evolutionist, but what's even more interesting is your sayings, and I quote, "Being an evolutionist does not exclude other religions' beliefs unless they specifically exclude the belief in the evolutionary process." Could a person be an evolutionist and Orthodox Christian at the same time, for example? And how would you explain your system of beliefs to general public evolutionism? Is it a religion, or is it a system of beliefs as you described it?
Well, what is a religion? How do you distinguish it from a system of beliefs? Religions are something that guide us as individuals and collectively as a society with the alleged attempt of improving things and providing us with foundations and boundaries for how we should behave. But I would say that our very existence has been a manifestation of this evolutionary phenomena. For me, I would say God is evolution. That the flowing energy and the creative nature of that flowing energy that has created the evolutionary process, that's the most perfect manifestation and example of God. And for me, God is the creative force in the universe, and I interpret it through this far from equilibrium thermodynamic physics, so that there's just a very different perception. Generalized open system dynamics is the G-O-D, right? God, that's my God. But you can have whatever you want as long as you believe that there's cause and effect, essentially. You believe that, if you step in front of a car and you get hit with it, you're going to get hurt. It's the same thing.
So you don't think that religion and science are opposites?
I think they're going to come together. But I do believe that a lot of the dogma of religion is a result of our lack of understanding of the physical principles that exemplify and describe the creative force, God.
Yeah, or some types of abuse of religion.
Well, there's abuse of everything because there's different kinds of people in the world with different needs, and a lot of them do things that are not beneficial for everyone else, and those are the things we would tend to classify as, I guess, abuse and bad. And we want to move the collective society forward, and unfortunately at this point, because of the gap between the knowledge of people who control us and what we are doing ourselves using cannabis, that gap has created a huge problem. And the governments at this point, because what we are saying medically and recreationally with cannabis, that's true. We all know it, we use it. The people who don't know it are the people who don't use it. And the experts who read all the science but don't use it, so they don't really understand what's going on. But they're the ones advising the government who are making the stupid laws that are typically reinforcing the money that goes through the medical system using the pharmaceutical model. And there are those of us, I'm certainly one of them, who believes that that whole entire situation is false medicine and false science, the way they've assembled their knowledge, and they are not helping people. That's why decade after decade, we're searching for the cure, we're searching for the cure, more research. Well, while they're screwing around with mice and tissue culture, the cannabis medical marijuana community is curing cancers, is making people walk who've had MS.
They don't search, they do.
And they don't want to talk to us because they're too busy saying, we will cure cancer, and we're too busy saying, go ahead, we're going to do what we're doing. We are curing cancer in people, not in tissue culture cells, and not in animals, in people, every day.
Cannabis Science Inc. is one of the most important institutions in USA that deals with scientific research and therapy development based on cannabinoids.
I disagree with you.
Really?
Totally.
There is some institution that is more important?
This one is not important at this point because they have not done what they were supposed to do.
Oh, no, okay.
I gave them the science.
I didn't hear the rest of my question.
Okay.
One of many causes of your company is to be approved of Food and Drug Administration, right? To make drugs based on cannabis. Could you explain what's the main difference between cannabinoid-based medicines and medicines based on cannabis?
Okay. That's a very important thing because when you look at cannabis or other herbal remedies, these things come out of life. So there's a whole bunch of biochemistry and that gets transformed to make any particular product in you, in any living system. And that in turn is transformed into other things. So, because ultimately what are we doing? We're eating food, drinking water, and we're putting out CO2, we're breathing air, we're burning our hydrocarbons, the food that we eat are hydrocarbons. Just the same way you burn oil or gas, we burn food. And just the way oil or gas, if it was burned cleanly, would generate CO2 and water, that's what we breathe out. So it's the same process. It's just instead of burning it quickly and heat, we burn it in a controlled fashion and we control it as organization. And that's what cannabis helps facilitate us accomplishing that, because in the process, just the same as doing anything else, you always have friction. And in life, friction can be viewed as free radicals because they impair the flow of your biochemistry, but they also have critical roles because they guide the flow of your biochemistry. So there's a double-edged sword.
Your famous quotation is, so I'll make the bold statement, but I can back it up, we wouldn't be here without endocannabinoid system.
Yes.
Please explain, in which ways, according to your knowledge, are endocannabinoid system and cannabinoids worthy for the life of mammals, right?
Well, no, all vertebrates actually, the development of the vertebrate brain, which has reached its high point in the human brain, from my perspective, everything I do is about energy flow. And in cells, energy flows by what we call metabolism, how all of these chemicals keep transforming and how in the process we can pull energy out of some that have it and then use that energy to construct other things that we need. But in that process, you always wind up making free radicals, which are the friction of life. So what your endocannabinoid system does is it regulates that in a way that allows us to use efficient energy production in a safe way. That's very important to understand what that means, because we have a number of ways that we can break down our food and convert it into energy. And some of those are very efficient and others are very inefficient. The efficient way, you can almost think of it as a nuclear reactor. Not that nuclear is efficient, but that you have the ability to generate a lot of energy, but the same problem is that you can have Fukushima.
Okay.
All right? And it's the same in us. Free radicals are chemicals that react with other things very easily, okay? And we make them all day long, constantly. And one single molecule could kill you. Because that one molecule could hit a base in the DNA that turned the cell into a cancer cell and your immune system didn't see. And every day in your 15 trillion cells, you generate, because of your metabolism, burning your food, you generate 20,000 of those damages in your 15 trillion cells where one could kill you. So to me that says most of what we are has to be designed to protect us. But we're here. And that's what your cannabinoid system is protecting you from, and it does it by balancing carbohydrate metabolism, which is efficient, with fat burning, which is inefficient, but turns off the cell's communication with its environment and fixes itself by recycling its damaged goods. This is miraculous. And so cannabis does, CB1 lets you be efficient and dangerous, and that's how your brain evolved. And CB2 helps fix the problems that were caused by that. This is my interpretation of things. My interpretations are not universally accepted. Matter of fact, the opposite.
Since Rick Simpson appeared in public, Opinions of experts are divided. According to the first, cannabis can cure only symptoms of disease as nausea, insomnia, pains, etc., while the rest of them says that cannabis can cure almost every disease. The first claim is undeclinable, while the other one is based on serious scientific evidence. CB receptors are found in almost every cell of human organism, right? Therefore, let's recap. What can we treat with cannabis?
It's so important to understand what illness is and what cure means.
Okay.
Okay? So we have our genetic profile, which gives us the basic shape, sort of how we talk to the world.
Okay.
But then by talking to the world, we change that as well. As we age, as we learn, as we eat whatever we eat, and take the medicines that we do, that affects how we are. So what is symptoms and what is health and what is curing mean? Imbalances in the flow of your biochemistry are what causes illness.
Okay.
So curing it means that you fix those imbalances. Okay. Now, if you're starving to death, you need food. That's your imbalance, right? But if you're dying from a heart attack caused by clogged arteries, well, that's where your food became that. Okay? Or if you have cancer, that's what your food became. So how is it that flowing energy becomes those things, and how do we prevent it? And for example, what we see with many cancers is people get rid of their cancers completely, but they still, well, it's not completely, apparently completely, but they still have those cells, often in a sleeping state. That's how those cells have survived.
Some kind of hibernation?
Kind of a hibernation. And if you don't use cannabis and use the right diet to maintain an environment that will keep them sleeping, they will wake up. And when they wake up, then you'll have cancer again. So what I'm saying here, really, for many of these illnesses, like MS and my autoimmune diseases, my arthritis, etc., cannabis is a necessary nutrient. It's not a food, it's not a medicine that's going to magically cure. You are a dynamic, constantly changing entity, and you need to shift your biochemistry towards health. And if cannabis is what is doing that, that means you need to consume that in order to be healthy. And if you want to live longer and healthier and maintain your brain, you have to increase your cannabinoid activity. You can do it with food, in particular the omega-3 fatty acids and the omega-6s, but in particular the omega-3s, are how your body makes the pot that you make. You got to understand, everything in your body from conception until death is regulated by the pot that you make. So if you don't have enough pot, then all of those things don't work correctly, and we make our pot out of omega-3s and these fats. And they do the same thing that pot does, and that's why these compounds are in mother's milk, because nature has selected for us to use that activity with increasing abundance. And that's why in your brain, in the most evolutionarily advanced areas of your brain, the things that they're worried about damaging, how come nature selected to put all those cannabinoid receptors there? Why are there always more and more and more?
Maybe
when you're saying we should have less and less. They're backwards. They're trying to kill us. And they are killing us with their medicines and their food, and they're preventing us from having the knowledge and the availability of this plant that's been used for thousands of years for improving health.
Conventional medicine here in Serbia reproach a lack of standardization of drugs based on cannabis. On the other hand, we face the problem of illegal status of cannabis, so the research in the area is practically impossible. At start, Rick Simpson wrote a very good protocol. Did you rely on his research while making your own research?
I definitely used his because he was implementing what I was thinking about.
Okay.
So then, instead of having test tube data from cells, we had real data in real life circumstances from people.
Okay.
I would go so far at this point, because this is absolutely the way I believe, that our scientific establishment, our medical establishment, our pharmaceutical establishment doesn't want to know what we are talking about, because it destroys their entire system.
Okay.
When you think of how many medicines are being used, for sleep, for pain, for everything.
And we get all the
And all you do is see them on advertisements on TV. You get all of that out of cannabis because that's how your body works. Okay. And this can touch how your body works. What they are doing is throwing a pebble in the stream. And what does the stream do when you throw a pebble in it? Goes around it. So when they're trying to cure things by throwing the magic pebble, they do nothing but create resistance and further imbalance.
Okay, right. I agree with that. What's your opinion about free recreational usage of cannabis, like smoking?
All cannabis use is good.
But is it safe to use cannabis without any of precognition, the same way we use alcohol, for example?
They're totally different. Your body doesn't make alcohol to save your life. Your body makes pot to save your life.
Okay.
That's a big difference. Listen to Mother Nature, listen to God.
Okay, so can we be addicted to cannabis? And could we say that lifetime cannabis usage is something like a lifelong therapy or lifelong prevention?
It is lifelong therapy. It is an anti-aging drug.
Okay.
But more importantly, because of how the activity has always naturally increased in our brains as evolution proceeds, when you're getting high today, that means you're experiencing what the future will be like.
Okay.
Because we will eventually be more stoned than we are now, just the way we are more stoned than we used to be.
Okay.
Our societies, we see the impact of the increasing cannabinoid activity, which is necessary for health.
Okay.
You see, so they go hand in hand here. We're going to move into the future as we get healthier, as we get more open-minded, as we get less aggressive. So we're really, our minds are going to converge with new technologies that are going to give us clean energy. And the current social structures, the financial systems that are raping people, the governments that are part of that corruption, really the oppressors sucking the life out of the oppressed. Basically, at this point, I would have to say our governments are cancers on society. And as we get healthier, as humanity gets healthier, that cancer will go away.
So what's cannabis abuse according to you? Can cannabis be abused?
If somebody's using it in a fashion that most people would agree is abusive, for me that would be that it's interfering with their life instead of enhancing their life. That's the difference. If it's making you better, use it. That's not abuse.
Okay.
If it's making you worse, then it's abuse.
It's abuse.
And a lot of times where we see what we classify as abuse is bullshit. Because you have young kids who come from dysfunctional families, they don't have proper nutrition, they're using all different drugs. And for them, cannabis becomes their kind of salvation because their body knows it's healthy for them. So even if they can't put their stuff together correctly to understand it, their body is telling them to use it because they need it.
Okay, I agree with that too. Indoor or outdoor?
I like nature, so ideally I would say I would prefer an outdoor. But see, I don't smoke.
Okay.
In terms of smoking, I rarely smoke. I mean, I'm smoking here a little, but I ate already my oil.
Okay.
Smoking is insignificant when you eat oil.
Okay. Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned.
Okay, so indica or sativa?
Well, there too, and people have to be aware that there is some significant differences, not only in terms of the high, but in terms of the body.
Okay.
And I love sativas because I like to get high, and they're very psychedelic. I like visuals, I like hallucinations.
Okay.
And with sativas, you can go into that space when you want to, so I like that. But also, it seems to have very strong effects on the heart. Depending on the strains, it can exacerbate. It gives you like a little bit of an increased heart rate at first. It settles down afterwards, but I've had heart issues in the past, so I avoid the sativas. But what I found now is that with the oils, I don't see that much of a difference. Once you're using oil all the time, like I do.
But anyway, it's completely different when you use oil and when you smoke.
When you use oil, from my perspective, and I have, obviously my biases, I think that when you eat it, your whole body and soul gets stoned. And when you smoke it, it's too concentrated in your head. And if you do a lot, a little bit is insignificant. But if you're smoking a whole lot, it doesn't affect your spirit and soul in as positive a way. It's too localized.
Okay. Tell me, do you have some favorite strain?
No, I just like the good, whatever gets me to the place I want to go. And the place I want to go, for me, high is to be in touch with my life, to be in touch with the universe. That's what high is for me.
How fast fascinating is that THC is chemically very similar to anandamide molecule that is naturally located in our body.
Well, chemically they don't look alike at all. Not really, but they have enough critical places where they have the right environment, chemistry that they create, so that they bind to the same receptors. They're not going to do exactly the same thing because the breakdown products are going to be different. But in general, for the most part, their activity is going to be on CB1, CB2 receptors, and they're going to balance sugar and fat burning so that you can do as much as you can do without killing yourself.
Yeah, okay. What's your message to Serbian people who are fighting for legalization?
Keep fighting. It's your health, it's your life, it's your country. And keep in mind, I know Serbia is a conservative country, but if you look at the more modern translations of the Bible, you find out that the holy anointing oil is made with cannabis.
Yeah, I talk about that one.
Yeah, so that's rather significant from a religious perspective. And also in the Bible it says God gave man all seeds bearing plants and they are good. So I always have a little trouble with people who claim to be religious but then assume they know more than God.
True. And the last one is, what would you recommend to those who are forbidding us to use cannabis?
Well, they will eventually learn the hard way because eventually their family members, their loved ones, their children, their parents will get sick. And as this knowledge and the evidence of its value continues to increase, these people will be confronted with the same decisions that others are. But because of the evolving and developing, growing knowledge of what we are accomplishing by using it, more and more people are going to move in that direction, and if they're going to want to save their lives of their friends and their family, they better start early, not late.
Dr. Rob, thank you once again for agreeing to speak with us.
My pleasure.
Such an honor.
Bye-bye. Peace and love.